This is the fellow passenger speaking. I like to talk about generative music techniques using Ableton, and today I would like to explore generating your own presets for bass, lead and pad in particular, but you can apply this technique to other types of sounds as well, like percussion. And these presets, even though we're going to use a lot of random techniques, they will all sound more or less fairly good because you will be the one who sets the rules of what's randomized and how much. And I think this is one of the areas where your skill comes into play in terms of creating generative music. Before we get going, I'm going to cut to some clips of what's to come. All right, we're almost ready to go, but I would like to ask you to check out my Patreon page, because if you feel able to and you like what I do, please consider sponsoring me. Even if it's just for 1 month, you will be able to download loads of things as a thank you. And for this video in particular, you will be able to download some of the tools that we're going to build. However, if you feel unable to part with any of your money, you can just follow along and build all these things as we go, because I'm not going to use any paid for third party. It's just going to be Ableton stock things. You will need to have Ableton 11 at least, or whenever you watch this video there might be a newer version, but there we go. Also, please click subscribe and the little bell for notifications if you haven't done that yet. If anything, that would help me loads too. Okay, let's do this. We got a 1 MIDI channel here, and I'm going to open the operator that comes with Ableton, which is the built-in FM synthesizer. So it's got the default sine wave playing here, and to generate some presets, we want to set up some rules for what should be randomized. And for that, we are going to use the expression control, which you will find under MIDI effects. Close that. There we are. If you're new to this channel, you might not know that I use this tool pretty much all the time, and it is a MIDI effect that's built in Max for Live. And when it receives a MIDI channel, a MIDI key, MIDI note, sorry, I'm just pressing the keyboard here, it will pick up the velocity and pitch or whatever of that note, so you can use that to map that to different values. But what we are particularly interested in is the random setting, so you can go in and set all these to random. So when I press a key now, you get all these random values coming up here, so we can randomize lots of the parameters in this synthesizer. I'm also going to turn the amount up to 100%. And you may wonder what this is, or you may never have thought about what the amount is. What that does is, if I set that to 100%, it means that the random value that it's giving me can be anything between minimum and maximum. So you can see those values are jumping around quite a lot. But just to demonstrate what this does, I'm going to turn that down quite a lot to a low value, let's say 8%, and you will see that one is not going to jump as much now. Turn that up a little bit so it might be easier to see. That's maybe too much. You can clearly see that this one is not jumping as much as the other ones do. And that is because this is using something, I think it's called drunken random. Rather than giving you a completely random value, it's almost like someone is staggering around. It's going a little bit up, a little bit down, and the amount sets how far away from the current value it will be stepping. And the next time you press, it will deviate from that. So you will get these sort of drifting random values instead. So now you know. Anyway, that was a little side note. So I'm going to turn that up to 100%. We are going to need a lot of these. So you can either now duplicate these by hitting Command D on a Mac, doing that. Or if you want to use this for in the future and you feel like this is something that you will use a lot, you can just, do you press a little disc? Yes, there you press a little disc and you can create a preset that you name. I've already done that. So if I go up, I think you can also just drag it to here. Does that work? Okay. Yes. So we got that here. It's just called expression control now. I'm going to remove it because I've already made one that I've named here. So I've got, okay, go away. There we are. We can then just drag more of these in here, which have the presets already set up with random and 100%, because that's actually what I use by far the most. All right, let's generate some presets. So this allows me to map this to different parameters here. And now the skill comes in, and here you can experiment a lot with what you like. You're going to pick the parameters that you think will yield interesting results. And one of the things that we would like to do is just to create something where something that all of it doesn't sound exactly the same, but it will be in the same realm. So we are doing lead sounds now. So one of the things I'm going to do, the waveform is sine by default. So if I click here and map that to the waveform, every time I press a key now, it will pick different waveforms, which already generates quite different types of sounds. And if you're not familiar with FM synthesis, I'm not going to explain it in this video. I'm going to assume that you either know it, or if you're interested, that you're going to want to look it up. Otherwise, just follow along and just get weird random results that you don't quite know why, but that's fine too. You have to start somewhere. So that's the main oscillator down here. And if I turn up attach the next random to the next oscillator's volume, which affects the first oscillator, we're going to get. And you can go in and change the oscillator here as well. Just go down an octave on my keyboard. So we're already getting quite different types, quite varied types of sounds. So every time we press a key. And other things we can do is the envelope. We probably want to change the decay, and we probably want to change the release. And maybe the sustain as well, actually. Here we can use these min and max values, because we probably don't want the decay to ever be 0, because that's just going to end up having sounds that sound like just a little click, which is interesting, but we probably don't want that to happen too much. A bit lower than that. Do some chords. And the release, we might not want to have exactly 100%, because then we get really long ringing notes. But yeah, fairly long still. One thing that I find very interesting is looping delays, looping envelopes, because then you can create interesting textures, I suppose. So we take the first oscillator here and we are going to set that to changing what type of loop, or sometimes it might not be a loop at all. Here there's nice clicks, and then we can also change things like the repeat if it's in sync mode, and then there's another one that's got time. Here we are. We can map that as well. And if we do that for the second oscillator as well, here, let's go in, and here we can also change the attack. I didn't add the attack to the first oscillator because that could stop it from being a lead sound. You can have a little bit of modulation on the attack. For the second oscillator, I think that could add interesting textures. We do all of them. We would do attack, decay, release, and sustain. And we also want to change the tuning of that oscillator, and we can turn, we probably don't want the tuning to go super high. We might want it to go maybe up to about 50%, 51 is fine. And then we do the looping delay thing on that one as well, and we map the repeat and time. And we can also apply randomization to the frequency of the filter, and we probably don't ever want that to be quite zero, because then we're not going to hear anything. And we are going to need more of these random things. The other thing that's interesting to do here is also, because that's got its own envelope, that we randomize the loop, the time, and the repeat for that. And we can also set the amount the envelope is actually going to affect the filter. And we can change the attack and decay. And release for that. And yeah, sustain. You can obviously go in and actually add the other oscillators in as well and randomize them as much as you want. Another very important thing to randomize is this thing here. You see these colored boxes, and that's basically how the oscillators are affecting one another. So by default, it's this straight line, which means that the bottom oscillator is your master, oscillator A, which is affected by oscillator B. And oscillator B is affected by oscillator C, blah, blah, blah. And here you can see different configurations, how these oscillators are affecting one another. The last one, all of these oscillators are actually running independently. So they are not modulating each other's frequencies. And we can map that here, and then it's going to, every time we press a key, it's going to pick a different algorithm. To add something to this, because you can also hear that even though we're not modulating the volume ends up being different, and I think that is just because we are doing quite a lot of modulation on the envelopes for these oscillators. So to remedy that a little bit, we can add a limiter to here, which basically compresses the sound. It pushes the volume up if it pushes the volume down if it reaches a threshold. So we turn it up. So it's always going to turn the volume up. But if you end up with a sound that's got high volume, it's going to press it down. So it's never going to clip quite. Okay, we have created now, every time we press a key, we get a new preset. But obviously you want to save these as presets. Otherwise, yeah. Or you can actually use it like this and you will get a crazy track where every time a new MIDI note comes through, it's going to be a different one. So we're going to need to group these now. So I hit Command G on these ones. I've put the instrument with my limiter in 1. And then I'm going to select all the expression controls and group them as well into their own group. Click on that so I can, this button here, and then I can rename this to preset gen. And this one, I am not going to name that one. And then I'm going to take both of them and group them together. And that is our, let's call this lead preset maker. So one thing we can do, let's say that we are done with generating our own lead sounds here. You can obviously go in and tweak these a bit more. We take this preset generator so you can use it in the future if you want to generate more presets or you want to develop it a bit further. You click on user library and you find a place here in the presets folder where you would like to place this. I would suggest that you put it in instruments because it is an instrument. I've created a fellow passenger folder. You can put it wherever you like. And then I have created some subcategories. So I have done this here. Let's take this and then just drag it into here. And then we got a lead preset maker here. I'm also going to take a new folder. Actually, we call it TFP preset lead preset tutorial. And I'm going to take this preset maker and move it into there. And then you might not, but when you're making your song, you might not want to have all these gubbins with it. You just want the sound, because then I'll show you. Let's do here. Why are you not playing? Because I somehow unclicked that button. Say that we like that sound. The thing is that you need to save it now until you press another key, because then it will be gone forever. You skip that portion, but you take this group here with the limiter inside it and drag that into here. And then we call that preset 1, or you call it whatever you want. And then we can do another one. So we like that one. Preset 2. Oh, preset 3. Alright, I'm not renaming these now. I'll do. I'm going to work a bit more on this and generate a whole bunch more that you can use if you sponsor me on Patreon. I'm going to create some nice sounds for you. What you can do as well, if you want to not... No, actually, sorry, let's rewind. I'm going to chuck all that now, so we have an empty field, and we can just grab one of the presets here now. And then you can go in, obviously, and tweak it a bit here. Now, when we don't have all the other gubbins here with all the preset, what's it called? Expression control on there, you get access to all these knobs again now, so you can go and change it so the envelope had gotten a bit out of hand in that preset. So now you can tweak it to your liking. We can try another one. It's more like almost like a bass. All right, you get the idea. The other thing you can do, if you want to create a new track, and let's say that you like the preset generator that you have made, and you find a sound that you like, let's say we like that one. If you just turn this portion off, just actually turning all, we can double click it so we close it. That's now you got your preset there, or it's like, oh, you change your mind, you want to generate some new ones, just turn that back on again. Let's say you like that one better, and then we turn that off again. Anyway, getting lost in music. Okay, let's call that done for leads. I suppose it illustrates the idea. That was maybe not the most refined one I've done, but well, I shouldn't be complaining about the stuff that I do, should I? Anyway, let's go in and we are going to do bass. Let's create a folder in here just in preparation. Bass. What did I call the other one? I called it TFP lead preset tutorial, and then we should call it TFP bass preset tutorial. There we are. And let's create another operator. And then, so we created lots of lead presets now. And if you want to create like bass presets, I suggest that you just dial in a bass sound, sort of, you know, something that you would usually do. I'm going to do one of the classic FM bass type sounds, taking the second oscillator, turning it up about halfway and setting the chorus to about 4. And then we turn the transpose down a couple of octaves. And then we basically go through the same process again, but now because we have set up a bass to start with, then you can then choose the right things to generate new bass sounds. And that's going to keep all the presets that you create in the bass territory. So I am open up my preset here with all set to random and amount to 100%. So for this, we might want to change the volume of this third oscillator and the fourth oscillator and the tuning of those. But maybe the level not so high, maybe. Do we want to change maybe the waveform of the second oscillator? And the envelope. And we may not want to do we might want to have a little bit of randomization of the cutoff, so we never want 0, but we may not want exactly 100% either. We can use our looping envelopes. I'm going to set, maybe I just try to do that on the second oscillator rather than the first one for this, and we change those parameters. And then we want to change the envelope settings itself, at least the release and the decay. that for maybe. Also, the other important thing for a bass, I forgot, if you click down here, you can set the voices to 1 because, well, if you want to make chords with your bass, go for it. I generally prefer that to be in mono. As you can hear, we can already get some quite varied bass sounds. I'm going to do a little bit maybe on the resonance of the filter, and I'm going to, what do I do? We probably don't want the resonance to go up that high, but maybe the filter envelope. And again, we can have a looping envelope on that, and we change the loop times on those, and we do the release time and the decay for that one. Where's the decay there? Set to the decay, turn it up so it's never quite zero. Do we dare experiment a bit with that? Yes, I think we do. To add a bit of grit to this, I think it's, I can't remember who said this. I think it was, I heard Mr. Bill saying this, talking about using effects as part of your synthesis process. And I think that's absolutely fine. Easy to forget sometimes. So let's put a saturator after this here. So we can set the drive, but very subtle. I think we don't want that to go to a little bit of a margin here. We can do the maybe the algorithm, but also the dry wet. So we let's put a limiter after that as well to make sure that we don't get some super quiet ones. Can fine tune this obviously. Maybe we actually want to have just a tiny bit of attack to see if maybe we should do the sacrilegious thing and putting a reverb on the bass. I don't know if it's sacrilegious. We turn stereo off. We randomize the dry wet on that, and then we never want it completely wet. All right, let's just say that that's done, and we do the same thing. We select all the expression controls and group them, and these ones are already in a group, and we just, so we don't, this is the preset gen portion of that group, and we have if we group those two together, then we have our TFP bass preset maker. And then I don't have to show it to you again, or maybe I should, so we don't forget. We go down to here, I've created that folder there. We take the whole preset maker, dump it in there, and then we just make some nice presets. bother naming them now. I can go in and do that later. Another nice one. Naming them FFF or something. Anyway, I'll go and name them properly, I'll promise. And again, you can do that thing where you just grab the whole preset maker and then you just turn. So we like that sound. And then you get bored of that, so you want to generate a new one. Great little technique for generating lots of bass sounds. All right, let's say the bass is done. Let's do some pads. And same thing, same story again. We can just chuck all this stuff now. We don't need that anymore. We're going to start fresh. And just to mix it up a bit, let's not take the operator. Let's take the wavetable. That's a nice one. Sounds, I think, pretty much the same by default because it's got a sine wave and a similar sort of envelope in there. And if I take my expression control, no, not yet actually. We do like we did with the bass. We're going to set up a default pad sound as our starting point because that's going to be, to me anyway, it makes it easier to generate sounds that end up in that realm. And the easiest thing to do is just, yeah, add a bunch of attack and a bunch of release. Already got a nice pad sound here. The other thing we may want to do, because I often end up, let's just have a look. So if we pick the, sorry, I'm saying 5 things at the same time. Let's just pretend that I didn't say all that stuff. Let's grab an EQ8, which is the equalizer. And if I press a key here, now we got the sine wave, and then we get these fundamental tones here. And when you make a chord, depending on where you want your pads to sit, I think it's worth, for this, I like narrowing down the frequency area. That, no, let's do this instead. This is going to be much better. Let's take the filter, and we are picking a band pass filter, which is basically, imagine that you take an EQ and you cut all the bass and you cut all the treble, and when that sits in the middle here, and we want that to track with the keyboard, because otherwise when we play really high notes where the fundamental will end up outside of this area, they're going to get very quiet and perhaps eventually even just not being audible at all. And the same with the bass, that we want it to create this little frequency spectrum, but that will shift up and down depending on the key that you are pressing. So for doing that, we need to go into the matrix here. Now let's see. Filter frequency, and I think it's the note. So you can see I'm pressing different keys on the keyboard, and that little mountain there is moving up and down if I'm playing higher keys. And generally I like to have pads that, and that's also going to help you if you have lots of other instruments playing at the same time, that you don't get big lush pads that's just going to wash out all the other instruments that you're using. And I also feel that reverbs are quite good for pads, and we can keep the stereo, and I don't necessarily want to keep all the low end, do that. It's currently in eco quality mode. I personally quite like that sometimes because it sounds less natural. Why would you like something that sounds less natural? I don't know. And the decay time is just going to make it really lush. Turn that down a bit. Okay, let's say that this is, I'm going to group these. So we've got our instrument group for when we're saving our presets. And now let's start generating pads. And we need our expression control. I'll take my preset there with all the random already set up. And let's do, actually, the first one we can do the decay time for the reverb. Maybe we can even do the dry wet for the reverb. Maybe we can do the quality as well, actually. Okay, nice lush pads. And what else can we do? We can... This is currently set to the basic shapes here. Let me see what other ones. Here we have the different types of... Sadly, I don't think you can modulate that. No, you can't. That's a shame, because it would have been great if we could actually select the wavetable that was used. But we can't. But we can do this. We can jump around in the wavetable. And these effects down here where we can warp and fold these waveforms. So let's do that as well. And we currently have, by default, if we go to modulation sources, the amp envelope is what's currently creating that long sorry, that's what's affecting the volume. So the volume is fading in slowly if we have a long attack. We can randomize some of that as well. I'm sorry, just get that bloody Mac bar popping up all the time. We may not want the attack to be entirely zero ever, so we turn that up. The same with the release time, we probably never want that to be entirely zero. We can do the frequency here for the filter. And again, the frequency, I don't know if it's again, but we never want it to be zero, and we probably don't want it to be quite 100, just to... And we can do like we did with the other ones. This is also a looping envelope somewhere. Of course, we need to say that envelope number 2, because there's currently no envelope controlling the filter. So if we click on envelope 2, we click on the matrix, and then we turn that up to 100. We probably want to turn that down a bit. If it doesn't say filter frequency here, or if there's any other parameter that you want to affect by these envelopes and LFOs and things, just turn. So if I want, just turn whatever parameter that is, and it will appear here. So let's say we want to do something with the resonance. If I just do that, that pops up there automatically, but we don't want to do that right now. So envelope number 2 is currently affecting the filter. or 100%, but maybe we just set it to about 40%. Yeah. Actually, we can randomize how much that envelope. I thought. Oh no, we're not allowed to. Okay, we go in here and we can set. Here we can randomize the loop. And we randomize these values, how that's going to be. Randomizing the different envelope values is going to change quite a lot how that looping envelope sounds. Go down an octave. Another effect that's quite nice to add to a pad is chorus. Whether we want that after or before the reverb, you can experiment with that. Maybe before. And we can modulate, we can change the dry wet. And the amount it's going to affect it. Another one is some sort of phasing or flanger stuff. To dry wet, and maybe we can modulate the rate. The amount we could maybe, let's add a little bit more while we're at it. Oh, the amount we are already doing, not the amount of that one, yes. Let's do the limiting trick on this one as well, because sometimes they go a bit quiet. I don't know if that's the best way of doing it, but that's what we're doing today. All right, let's turn the gain up. I think some of those envelopes, now this is tricky to see where we have, it's the attack that we may not want to be quite 100% ever. Alright, how about that? So you know the score by now. You select all of these and you group them, and we call it our preset gen, and we group that together with, can't remember what we call them anymore now, TFP pad preset generator, and we go and save that in pads, and we got a new folder and we call that TFP pad preset gen tutorial, and I'll place it in there. And then we have to generate some nice pads from this. Let's see, we just close this. Oh, not the whole thing, just a. That's a nice pad. Nice pad. I don't know. I'm going to make a whole bunch of these. I might tweak these a bit further, but I think that's the end of the video, and I hope it gave you an idea, and I think you can take this really far and develop these type of instruments yourself, depending on what type of sounds you're after. And if you would ever consider sharing them with me or showing what you've done, I would love to hear about it. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. And please remember, please check out my Patreon. There's lots of stuff on there, and there will be hopefully be some more videos on other generative techniques that could help you in your generative music making process. This is obviously just focusing on creating the sounds, but thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again. Thank you very much. Goodbye.